The objectives for this module are: explain the importance of understanding context for program development, discuss strategies for managing power and conflict, describe ways to engage stakeholder support, explain different curriculum models, and describe and explain learning transfer. When we start to build a program, we use the ADE model. The first letter is A for analysis. There are many discoveries to make within the analysis. Once the learning need is identified, then the real work of analysis happens. For example, consider the following learning needs. Through observation, it was uncovered at one community college that there was a need to help faculty learn how to design online courses. Through different reported cases of the Zika virus, the CDC realized that the general public needed to be educated about how to protect themselves from mosquito bites. The state of Florida realized it would be a good idea to re-educate people about the rules or laws regarding stopping for a school bus, driving in a school zone, and school crossings. Once the aim or learning need is established, you need to understand all about the entity that will be the focus of the learning program. Context is one of the most important. What kinds of examples can you think of for each of these contexts in relation to the learning examples mentioned in the previous slide? Here are some questions that need to be answered when considering context. There are a variety of sources from which planners can gain knowledge about the context of the program. What kinds of information would you uncover from documents, technology sources, professional associations, meetings, focus groups, interviews, surveys, questionnaires? Be sure to review scenarios 4.1 and 4.2 in your text. Using contextual knowledge can be challenging and puzzling. It is necessary to understand the organizational culture before advising or consulting on an organizational change. Understanding the organizational culture helps an instructional designer consultant to be aware of stated and unstated values and goals and how they are created, managed, manipulated, and deployed. Be sure to review scenario 3.3 in your text. The ability to shape perceived needs, set program agendas, determine target populations, make decisions, allocate resources, and select the beneficiaries of the program resides in those that possess power. There are different levels of power, authentic and authoritative. Armed with information and data, planners can debate, discuss, explain, and support positions effectively. If planners lack power or the will to use it, they can quickly be crushed by others who want to run or ruin the program. Bowman and Deal maintain typical leadership traits include being able to communicate a vision, influence others toward a common goal, serve others. Leadership plays a crucial role in any organization. Change of leadership and reflection and rethinking in the top management team are powerful triggers for organizational change. Leaders create a context in which the status quo is challenged. Try to recollect and reflect upon an experience of crisis and leadership during your career. Program planners empower themselves with whom they work. Build support from the key constituents such as current and potential participants, organizational personnel, formal and informal sources of authority. It is essential to understand the organizational culture. The culture of an organization represents certain predefined expectations for behavior, including attitudes that give members of the organization a sense of security in that they know how to function and interact in the organization. It is common ground for members of the organization. Culture influences leadership, and leadership influences culture. Each culture has its customs, language, traditions, symbols, icons, stories, and heroes. Culture defines the habits of thinking, the shared knowledge, and the methods of communication. Culture implies stability, patterns, and structure. All cultures struggle to maintain survival, growth, and adaptation. External and internal forces can act on culture. As a program developer, you must align programs with organization mission and goals, promote an organizational culture that values learning, and build partnerships with other organizational groups. You may encounter conflict within your group of participants and program leaders. Conflict can be triggered internally, personality conflicts within the group, or negative behavior from one person, or externally, such as exhaustion, logistical problems, cultural exchanges, etc. Either way, it is important that you are comfortable responding to and managing conflicts that arise. You should also be aware of how you tend to respond to conflict, and you may want to have your participants and/or co-leaders reflect on this as well. Negotiating is a process of trying to reach a consensual agreement. Planners need to have a finely tuned communication skills, listen to multiple voices, think analytically, and be willing to take a stand. Assume that the need for all parties to learn about each other, issues at stake, and about the practical options that lie beneath. Place your iron hand in the velvet glove. Common reasons people resist change are when the proposed users have not been consulted about the change and it is offered to them as an accomplished fact, when the reason for the change is unclear, and ambiguity can trigger negative reactions among users, when the change threatens to modify established patterns of working relationships between people, when communication about the change, such as timetables, personnel, monies, etc., has not been sufficient, when the benefits and rewards for making the change are not seen as adequate for the trouble involved, and when the change threatens jobs, power, or status in the organization. There are different types of curriculum, such as overt, societal, and covert. Depending on the intent of the curriculum, the content and delivery can overlook the human aspects, such as attitudes, feelings, and values. Reflect upon your own experiences in school or college or at work regarding curriculum. What differences have you observed, such as the teacher, environment, materials, or institution that might influence the curriculum? During previous courses, you may have encountered the following terms, such as curriculum, learning experiences, and objectives. Can you define these terms? Can you describe anything you learned that was not intended or planned? What are the elements of curriculum? What is the relationship among the elements of curriculum? Take time to reflect on these concepts. Curriculum models help map out the rationale for use of learning and assessment approaches and align them with the expected outcomes and objectives. One such model is the product model, where the focus is on experience rather than outcomes. The product model is traced to the work of Tyler, prescriptive or structured approach, uses behavioral language, the emphasis is on assessment, and it is instructor driven. There are different types of product models. In the content-driven curriculum, the assumption is that the linear approach and consistency guarantee relevant content that is covered and prepares students to acquire specific skills and knowledge. Content-driven curriculum recognizes that the linear approach limits realistic and interdisciplinary learning. Modifications in course curricula allow instructors to integrate other opportunities for students to experience a more integrated view of the world and career. An example is teaching geometry in isolation of real-world application versus integrating architectural or construction trades curricula to put theory and computation into practice. Another model is the process model, where the focus is on experience rather than outcomes. In the process model, emphasis is on means rather than ends. The learner should participate in deciding the nature of learning activities. It is individualized. Each learner makes unique responses to learning experiences, and it considers social and life skills. In the student-driven curriculum, as learners acquire new levels of understanding, the connections to the main topic diverge. The curriculum shifts with the needs of the students. This model allows learners to pursue topics that engage their personal curiosity and skills. However, the approach runs the risk of missing foundational topics. In large classrooms, it may be difficult for some instructors to manage the unique needs of each student. In the purpose-driven curriculum, also known as problem-driven curriculum, the focus is on a realistic or hypothetical problem or issue that is important for the learner. The curriculum is personal for the learners and is differentiated. An example is a program on water treatment issues, or learners might study how their communities are handling active shooter threats. Learners would be exposed to multi-level learning on a variety of related topics and concepts. They may have the opportunity to elect a particular focus. The goal of learning in an organization or program is the successful transfer of training or learning. We want the learners or trainees to generalize skills in the program or training to the work setting or setting beyond the program. We want trainees or learners to be able to maintain skills in the work setting or outside of the program. Training transfer is measured after participation in a training program. Transfer of learning or training is important because organizations invest a tremendous amount of money to educate or train people. Organizations want to see a return on their investment. Aspects of transfer of learning are intertwining. Transfer is a complex process. Be sure to spend some time on this slide to study the various aspects of transfer. There are certain strategies that can help strengthen transfer. Training or activities that require learners to actually understand and apply a concept prepares learners to retain and problem solve. Designers of training or learning should be realistic about the amount of time it takes for the learning training. Learners need to be able to practice application and problem solving and have the opportunity to receive feedback and self-monitor progress. Learners of all ages are more motivated when they can see the usefulness of what they are learning and when they can use that information to do something that has an impact on others, especially their local community. How tightly learning is tied to context depends on how the knowledge is acquired. Research has indicated that transfer across contexts is especially difficult when a subject is taught only in a single context rather than in multiple contexts. Transfer can be improved by helping students become more aware of themselves as learners who actively monitor their learning strategies and resources and assess their readiness for particular tests and performances. Consider a variety of these scenarios and apply an appropriate curriculum model. Next, reflect on the implications of the transfer of learning elements.